Donald Trump's decision to deploy hundreds of US Marines in northern Syria has received surprisingly little attention in the Western media. However, it has drawn a furious reaction from the Syrian leader, President Bashar al Assad. The deployment pitches relatively inexperienced American soldiers into the middle of a highly toxic, multi-fronted battlefield that includes foreign-backed Takifri terrorists. These terrorists are themselves supported by allies of the United States. The Trump administration says the aim is to defeat ISIL by assisting in the capture of the terrorists' headquarters in Raqqa. This campaign is seen as complementary to the ongoing siege of ISIL-held Mosul in northern Iraq. However, foreign forces, including those from the United States, that enter Syria without invitation are regarded as invaders by Syrian President Bashar al Assad. He has stated to Chinese media that no one had given the United States troops permission to be there. Despite a clear statement by President Assad that he has not given authorization for Americans to enter Aleppo province's city of Manbij, the Pentagon confirmed that US troops had been sent there to prevent conflict between US-backed Kurdish forces and militants backed by Turkey. President Assad noted that the complexity of the war was actually made worse by such foreign intervention. Will Donald Trump pursue a more aggressive international policy than his predecessor? And can ISIL ever be defeated in Syria and Iraq? Simple questions with important answers. How does the American public feel about the United States sending ground troops into Syria? We asked them.
I don't believe that we should. I don't think we should have sent troops into Iraq to begin with. So basically, I don't agree with doing that.
So I think nobody knows exactly what's going on in Syria. So it's very hard to say with this or with that.
I think most countries have failed, in Syria. I'm a European citizen. I think that Europe should have, at one moment, be able to intervene.
I hope that they can straighten it out. You know what I mean? Stop the shooting and killing.
Well, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's very unstable, and there are probably methods that could work better without sending in ground troops.
I don't think the U.S. has a good track record of fixing things when we send troops into the Middle East, so I think we need to be trying different, more humanitarian approaches rather than just sending more troops in.
I feel that there's a mess that we contributed to making by sending troops into Iraq in the first place.
I think it's a necessary thing right now to the whole world to look at Syria's situation, and we need to engage in that. If it's a military way to engage, so be it, because what ISIS is doing right now, it cannot continue.
I think it's dangerous right now. I don't think we need to be sending troops there. There's too much bad stuff going on there. It seems dangerous.
I think it's bad news. I think this is the NATO ground operation that's been threatened on Syria, against Syria for the last 6 years. It's actually now happening. It's now underway. People should be under no illusion that these troops are being sent to fight ISIL. Actually, ISIL's defeat is all but ensured now, all but a matter of time. Syrian government forces are on their way to Raqqa, making swift advances. The US troops have been sent in precisely to prevent the Syrian government retaking Raqqa, to make sure that the Syrian government is not able to restore its authority across the whole country, therefore that the Syria remains divided, remains disunited, and remains at war. The US troops are being sent to prevent a Syrian government victory and to undermine the influence of Iran and Russia. And that's what this is about. This is a continuation of the 6-year-old regime change policy. It's being escalated now by Trump, but people should be under no illusions this is any kind of reversal of the old policy. It's not. It's an escalation of the old policy.
Well, as a Syrian, this is the stand of most of Syrians and the Syrian government. Any foreign troops or foreign intervention in Syria without agreement with the Syrian government, agreement with Damascus, we view this as an aggression and as an occupation. And on the long run, we have to combat it or face it. That's what's happening with the United States. There is other soldiers or troops in Syria, is the Russian who has the agreement with the Syrian government, and the Iranians to fight also terrorism. They have an agreement with the Syrian government. A part of this, when it comes to Turkey or any other troops, we heard there's some British Marines or others. All this is occupation or an aggression, or they have entered our border without agreement with the Syrian government. So it will be viewed as an enemy from all the Syrian and include the Syrian government.
Donald Trump initially promised to work with the Russians and the Syrians to fight ISIL. Does the American public think sending ground troops into Syria without permission from the Syrians will make matters better or worse, and why?
Sending troops in when they're unwanted is always going to make things worse. And first of all, I don't believe that Russia is fighting ISIS. I think Russia has other ulterior motives. And so, I just don't think we should be there and under any circumstances.
I don't think it'll make matters better. I think that the only way to have an effective solution to what's happening over there is to work with the Syrian government and to work with not only the Syrian government but with countries around the world who can come together and solve the problem together.
I think it definitely will make matter worse if they don't have permission, if they're not working with Syrian civilians, because I know there are conflicting interests.
I don't know who's in charge in Syria right now, so I don't know exactly who Trump's administration should ask for permission. I think it's a whole chaos.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it probably could. I'm not sure if the Syrian government and Russia have our best interests or the Syrian people's best interests at heart. So, yeah, probably not a good idea.
I don't think sending them in conjunction with the Russians really makes any sense, since they're the ones backing the dictatorship. So I don't think that partnership really makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I know whether it would make matters worse. That's why I like having experts in my State Department doing diplomacy, and generals who understand the facts on the ground. But I wouldn't want to go in without a good plan, whether it's diplomatic or military.
Yeah, I think it'll make matters worse. And I think you said he's doing it without letting them know, which I don't know why you'd want to blindside it and just do that. I don't think it's right.
Yes, for sure it'll make matters worse, because we're now, until very recently, we're at a point where after the Syrian government forces and their allies retook Aleppo, it did look like there was a path opening for a potential to an end and potential end to the conflict, which would see the Syrian government restore its authority across the country, perhaps making some localized peace deals with the rebels, really beginning to understand actually that they weren't going to be able to win militarily, so they might have to involve themselves in a negotiated settlement of some sort. That was the path to peace that was being opened up. The insertion now of US troops is specifically designed to scupper that from taking place. It's designed to make sure the Syrian government does not restore its authority, and therefore it's designed to actually keep the war going, to give an extra shot in the arm to the insurgency, to make sure that the US troops have leverage and can deny the Syrian government the chance to actually retake Raqqa as they retook Aleppo. So this is bad news for those who want to see peace in the country. This is going to continue and extend and develop the war.
Of course, when it comes to Syrian crisis, we should not forget there's 85 countries playing in Syria, either by sending troops or intelligence or supplying money or arms in all stages. As a United Nations, as we know, and the Security Council was completely failure when it comes to Syrian crisis. The point here, when Trump promised something before the election, most of the presidents or candidates before they become president, they promise things. I don't know if he will carry it out or not. We hope he can work on the international stage with all the Syrian government, with the allies, with everyone, to end terrorism in Syria. The point here, with the Pentagon and other elements in the American administration, would allow him to do this. I don't know, or we can see sign Trump is facing a lots of problems domestically, and also problems. They're accusing him of all sorts of things, contacting Russia, and they're accusing Russia of cyber attacks and all sorts of things. So the situation is not clear at the moment how he will continue or how he will pursue his goals. We don't know. I mean, the other sides, which we know there's a lot of generals against Trump, they could win the argument and go the other way.
In United States politics, it seems no matter who gets elected, war is guaranteed. Why is this? We put that to the public.
I'm not sure that I agree with that, because President Obama did a lot to get us out of war and didn't have anything really to do with getting us into it. And I don't believe we got into any new wars during his administration, so that was 8 years. I believe with the Republican administration, you are always going to face that possibility. Back to George Bush, now with Trump, it's very scary.
I think because it's hard to have a 50-50 split and have everyone be happy about what's happening. I think that people are going to argue no matter what, because everyone has their own ideologies, and it's always a hard problem to solve.
Well, I'm not so sure war is warranted, but I think that big part of the world is a big mess, and for some reason everybody expects US to go there and do something.
The recent intervention of the Americans, particularly in the Middle East, I think were really catastrophic, particularly in Iraq.
I think we like to see ourselves as the global policeman, so we're always intervening in things that we probably shouldn't be when they have financial interests there.
Our country is not appreciated for generous things that we have done in the past, and I think that within the country there is a feeling that we need to protect interests.
I think that where you're strong is where you act, and for better or worse, as a global, in some form or fashion, global police with a good manual of use, we oftentimes get ourselves into situations where our strength and our credibility tempts us to be more active than we ought to be.
Well, there's a number of issues. I think there's an economic imperative right now. The thing is, the capitalist imperialist system, if you want to call it like that, Western hegemony, is in a deep crisis, multifaceted crisis right now. There's a crisis of capitalism, an overproduction crisis in Marxist terms. That means there's an increasing rivalry over markets and resources and so on, more cutthroat competition. So this is one aspect that is driving the West towards war. There's also a kind of crisis of the West's sort of 500 years of hegemony and domination over the globe. As the global South, the BRICS countries rise, the global South is developing, able to free itself from economic subordination to the West and so on. It's breaking out of that grip of Western domination. So all of these things, there's a resource crisis as well. Water, clean water resources running out and so on. So all of these factors are pushing towards war, and particularly pushing the US towards war. And there's a small window of opportunity. This is the dangerous thing for the US, to use its military might. At the moment, its economic might is being challenged as never before, but its military might is still there. But that window, that gap is closing. The more China develops and so on, Russia develops, the more their military is going to catch up with the US. So there's a real danger that the US might see that there's a limited window of opportunity where it can really push its military advantage to destroy its economic rivals. And that's the window that we're in right now. So we're in a moment of deep crisis, which is leading to escalation of war on all fronts.
Well, you have to ask in this point the arms manufacturers companies. Most of them are Americans, they are British, and they need to sell arms. As soon there is, I'm sorry to say that, there is an idiot in the Gulf who pay for all these arms to cause problem. In the case of Libya, the Gulf paid a lot of money, mainly Qatar. And in case of Syria, also the Gulf paid tens of billions of dollars, arm rebels and arms terrorists like ISIS, Al-Nusra Front, Ahrar al-Sham. They are all terrorists, not on our Syrian list only, is on United Nations list, and some of them on the American Congress list. But they do supply the arm. The West will love to supply the arm. As soon as someone pays, doesn't matter who pays, but as soon as they get the money, those factories have to work.
The US Marines and Special Operations Forces, totaling nearly 1,000, are vulnerable to attack by larger groups more accustomed to the terrain. More worrying still, President Assad has stated any foreign troops coming to Syria without our invitation or consultation or permission, they are invaders, whether they are American, Turkish or any other one. Can we expect a more aggressive foreign policy under Donald Trump than we had under Barack Obama, and why? We posed that question to the American public.
I do think that's going to happen. America's going to take a more aggressive stance in foreign policy. In his budget too, he's cutting more domestic things and adding to the military. So I think that's what we're facing, at least for the next 4 years.
I think it's hard to expect an aggressive foreign policy under a president who has no idea what he's doing in the government at all.
And I think it's very difficult at the moment because the new president has been here for a very short time. So I think he is very unpredictable.
I think we can definitely expect that because Donald Trump seems to go pretty hard onto anything that he has a strong passion about, and it seems like it's a strong passion of his. So I would definitely see that would be stronger under him.
I don't think so. I think he's very interested in just closing things down and focusing on ourselves. I'm not sure that's really what's going to happen, but I don't think it'll be more aggressive than Obama's was.
Well, if you define aggressive as using strength as opposed to using diplomacy, it's pretty clear to me, again, not being an expert, that the Trump administration and related doctrines will be more focused on using force than using words.
Now he's trying to raise more funds to the military. It's like a promise he's made in his campaign. So he'll probably need to show this strength to continue with his support from his electors.
I think Donald Trump is doing it out of emotion and more so just like kicking out everyone he doesn't agree with.
I think we can. I certainly think what we can't expect is what a lot of pro-Trump people seem to think was going to be happening, which was that there'll be some sort of return to isolationism on the part of the US, some kind of withdrawal from the Middle East. Trump gave this rhetoric about, not being particularly against the Syrian government, wanting to work with Russia. I think that was just rhetoric. I think that he is continuing the same policy, but he's escalating it. So in his actions it's becoming clear, but his actions sending troops into Syria, but also in his rhetoric, has increased the hostility towards Iran. And even there, it's not just rhetoric. He's increased sanctions. He's sent the USS Cole to the border of Iran and so on and so forth. His rhetoric against China, very hostile rhetoric against China, talking about starting a new trade war with China and so on. So yeah, I think we are seeing a ramping up of aggression. I think that's what's happening. And I think really the people that were saying Trump would be some sort of alternative, that Hillary was the warmongering candidate, that Trump was somehow going to be different, I think are being kind of brought to their senses now by the reality of what's clearly taken place, the escalation that's taken place now under Trump.
Well, this is a very hard question, but it's a good question. Barack Obama killed more people than George Bush. Everybody say he's soft, but his drone policy killed lots of people and lots of innocent people. And it seems to me Trump is more interested in domestically, as he said, he want to make America again, great again. But the problem is, to make America great again, you have to send arms and you have to sell weapons. So who is going to sell weapons to? Is he going to sell it to different countries, or is going to sell it to terrorists, as George Bush produced Al-Qaeda? But don't forget, Obama produced ISIS. So God knows what Trump is going to produce.
What's in the view of the American public can be done and should be done to defeat ISIL in Syria and Iraq?
I'm not sure I completely understand ISIS and their ideology. I don't buy into saying radical Islamic terrorism. I don't believe that's really what they are. I think they're just thugs. Just like we have in the United States, we have bad people, and whether they're Christians or Muslims or whatever, they're just bad people and they do bad things. So I don't really they identify themselves with a religion, but it's just awful to, what it does to a whole religion.
I think that every country that's concerned about what's happening should come together and think of a solution together. Like the UN and the EU should work together on this problem. Not one country can solve what's happening.
Most probably, a coalition between all the democratic countries.
I think the main thing that we can do here at home is to stop a war, quote unquote war against Islam. I think that allows for propaganda to be used by ISIS, and I think that's the first step is to just basically cut that out.
But I do believe that whatever you do should be effective tactically, not just in principle or as an ideological basis for action, because those are the ones that typically backfire.
I think it's necessary to be a military assault. I think there's no other way to compete with strength, if not with strength. So if they got guns, you need to got guns and fight them.
What can be done is what is being done by the Syrian government and its allies, in Iran and Russia and Hezbollah, which is uniting the Syrians as far as possible against the regime change proxy death squads and militias that have been working to implement the West regime change plan. That strategy, if the US stayed out, there's even talk now about Saudi Arabia, Jordan, UAE sending troops in, if these other forces stayed out, if the US were to end all of its funding for the rebels and so on, if Turkey was to withdraw and just allow the Syrian government to put an end to this regime change insurgency, then that would be, I believe, that would be the best chance for restoring the peace in Syria. So in terms of what the West should do, is what they should have done from the first, stay out. In fact, if the West had stayed out in the first place, we wouldn't be in this mess.
We have in Syria the belief we're going to defeat ISIL in Syria and Iraq, because in Syria and Iraq now and its allies, they are working on this. But the problem is the element of the Western countries who keep feeding these groups. In fact, with the arms, we all remember about the mistake in the drops of some of the weapons and ended up in ISIS hands. And no one believes in Syria or in Iraq this kind of group. They are so much sophisticated in their fights, and the way they fight and the equipment they have, it just came out from a normal group and a small group. We know, and everybody knows, and the West agreed actually, there is an intelligence working, and by the way, intelligence war under the ground in Syria and Iraq is maybe as bigger as what's happening above the ground.
President Assad has claimed that America's track record in recent wars has not been particularly successful. They have not ultimately won in Iraq. Somalia remains militant and divided. They had to withdraw from Vietnam. And Afghanistan remains a war zone. President Trump's apparent belief that ISIL can be beaten whilst ignoring other foreign-backed militants and without Syrian government support seems to many foolish and dangerous. As President Assad has observed, the US are very good at creating problems and destroying, but they are very bad at finding solutions. Their Syrian intervention might prove this yet again.